It's that time of the week again. It's TCP time, baby. 210. Episode 210, where I'm reminded of last week's episode where I think I might have either started or ended the episode with, well, might not be anything to talk about this week, guys. And there's nothing to talk about, guys. So we're just going to talk about Attack on Titan again and how the episode
we did get
instantly.
some positive feedback.
I did catch up, by the way.
Did you? So you're up. You on the anime. You're actually up to date.
Yes. Yeah.
Funny enough, you've read the manga up to a certain point. So you're actually ahead on the manga, but you're up to date on the anime. It's good.
Yep.
Wow. I still can't get used to the fact that it's a 20 something minute show with 2 songs at the top and bottom end, which means realistically you only have like a 20-minute show at best.
Yeah.
If not less. And it starts and ends instantly.
Yeah.
And I can't get used to it, even after, I was going to say 4 seasons, but the fact that the seasons are split into parts, I don't even know anymore. So let's just say like 7 seasons now. I don't know how many seasons we've had.
You know what I absolutely hate about anime? When they, like sometimes after the show, there's like a preview. And I'm keen for the preview. I want more content. Like, you motherfuckers already stuffed me by having a short-ass episode, like saying nothing.
Should do a preview at the end of our podcast episodes.
So, and then these motherfuckers, I'm like, oh, give me more of that preview. And I click into the preview, and it's like them being drawn in like very simplified terms, like huge heads, and going like about some cutesy shit, like screaming at each other that has nothing to do with the plot. Nobody cares. Get the fuck off. Give me a real preview. Give me more of that juice, dude. Like,
well, I appreciate the previews no longer spoil you for the next episode.
Yes.
Really?
I think
I'm actually okay with the previews being super vague and not showing you anything.
Yeah, I think Yiska, you've got a pretty bad take here, and I think people are definitely gonna let you know in the comments down below that everybody should be doing. That everybody's favorite episode are the filler beach arcs. I think across the board, ubiquitous across anime, everybody's loving that slice of life, has nothing to do with the plot beach episode where maybe there's a love interest. Who knows? I'll leave it up to you, shippers.
I think like not having any spoilers in the previews is good, but then it also defeats the purpose of a preview. At that point, they should probably just not have a preview anymore. What's also funny is they don't mind doing any spoilers in any of the songs, but they'll put no spoilers in the previews, which I find is quite interesting. It's like you can spoil the whole season, the intro song, but you don't have anything at all in the preview.
I gotta ask you, because like I will evaluate your character based on that answer. So choose carefully what you're about to say.
It's a multiple choice.
It's just a yes or no question.
Okay, so it's multiple choice between A and B. I got you.
Right. Okay. After listening to it for the first time, do you skip the theme song?
No.
Generally yes. And the reason I say generally yes is because I think this is the first season where I haven't. I've watched the theme song twice now, because there have only been 2 episodes, right? And I've watched the opening song twice.
And this one actually slaps.
I should have said I heard it, but yeah, I watched/heard it twice.
Yeah, okay.
I do like this one. I actually do like this one a lot. So
generally speaking,
3 times.
You will skip, right?
Yes.
Okay, you're now in the folk of good people, while Joe is trash and should probably find the next fire pit to throw himself into.
It's better/worse than that. Not only do I skip after the first viewing of it, sometimes I don't even finish the first viewing. I get halfway through the opening song the first time. I'm like, no, it's not for me.
Look at this pristine human being. That's exactly how it's supposed to be done.
Yeah.
Let them know, guys. Let them know. They're missing out on that culture, those sweet anime OPs.
When God made humans, when he made me, he's like, we're going to make this person the perfect anime watcher.
Like,
I think God made you listening to an anime opening.
Motherfucker, you understand that your life is finite, right? Like, you can't watch live infinity hours to watch anime openings. Life's way too short for that shit, bro. At some point, you're going to, like, you're just going to be at the kill screen, like, above your hospital bed, just like looking down on your stats, and like there will be 4 days of watching anime openings, and you will regret it, motherfucker.
Nope.
Wow.
Zero regret.
Stats.
Unreal.
4 days of your life spent.
I hope there's a stat screen when we die. Wherever we go, I hope I get
already
like a
improvement
weird
over
stat
Overwatch. You know, Jeff Kaplan is not the developer of life then.
Ironically, not having the scoreboard is like, oh yeah, you don't have the scoreboards, you don't have this kind of toxicity in game. But then ironically, I feel like we get more toxicity because we don't have a scoreboard.
Mm-hmm.
So people randomly blame each other instead of like factually blaming each other.
Yeah.
If you're gonna blame each other on your own team, you might as well do it factually. But we can't do that because we have to kind of guess. I'm like, well, I think the Moira on our team is sucking dick right now, so I'm just gonna blame that person, even though I don't actually know, but we'll just do it anyway because you're gonna fuck Moira.
Imagine like waking up next to your partner in the afterlife, and everyone has like their scoreboards above their heads, and it's like you're looking at yours and you're looking at your lifelong partners. It's like, wait, why do you have kills? What, motherfucker? I have hobbies.
Oh, I thought you were gonna go body count. I thought you were gonna be like, you know, people you've had sex with, and it's just like, excuse
people
me.
you've actually killed.
Oh,
people you've actually killed.
You told me you were the only one. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
oh, fucking hell.
This motherfucker's got a full laundry list of people.
37, really? I mean, I didn't count after a certain time.
Yeah, right. I thought we weren't counting blowjobs. Like, whoa, shit. Well, my bad. I misread the rules.
Apparently in Germany it's 8. 8 is the average.
Oh. Why is there an average? You would have averages.
People kill? Are we still going to talk about killing, or are we talking about something else?
You would have averages.
What the fuck, man? Dude, these fucking German jokes. Like, yes, AVRL. The average German kills 8 people. Oh, man.
So we're watching Invincible. What's that planet Omni-Man's from again?
What?
No, he's from.
Does it start with a V?
He's from Viltrum. That's right.
Yeah.
Germany
Viltrum,
is just Viltrum. You know, you everybody kills 8 people each, and then you just what's left is like, okay, now you know that's your empire or whatever.
Nice.
Anyway, so all the manga readers know it's coming up, or it's gonna get good, guys. Next episode is gonna be good, but I can already tell you next episode is gonna end on another really obnoxious cliffhanger, because I feel like every episode ends on an obnoxious cliffhanger. The next episode's ending will be the most obnoxious cliffhanger of them all. It'll be the worst cliffhanger. It'll be the type of cliffhanger that you sit there for about a minute or two afterwards, still watching. At this point, the ending song's finished, the preview's finished, you're still there, just looking at this blank Crunchyroll screen. You're like, fuck it, I'm reading the manga. That's what you're going to feel. That's what you're going to feel after how obnoxious the next cliffhanger is going to be.
Now, the thing is,
it's going to be obnoxious.
My problem is I read that part already. I'm pretty sure I can't remember what the cliffhanger was. Fuck.
I know what I mean. I'll tell you.
You can't not know.
I'll tell you after to remind you, but you know, I'll have mercy on the souls of everyone who's not up to that.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it will be as obnoxious as, was there a cliffhanger for the basement when they finally enter the basement?
Wasn't there? I think it was a season end.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that was.
I mean, that is the biggest cock block.
No. That season end was actually perfect. It was not. I remember the season end. The season end of season 3, they go to the basement, and then not only do they discover what the fuck's happening, but then they also
game us there.
Then you actually get the. Is it like is it a preview? I don't know if I can call it a preview. That you actually get to see quite a lot more of what the expanded world of Attack on Titan is, to not reveal too much to people that are not up to that, even though really you've had a lot of time to get up to that.
Yeah.
So I would say that was like one of the most gracefully done endings to a season, because they could have been complete dicks and just like cliffhanged the fuck out of you, and that would have been at that point, I think more people would have just abandoned the show and just gone to the manga.
Right.
But yeah, they actually handled that gracefully. This this is not obviously not a season ender yet, but this episode's cliffhanger is going to be bullshit. So tuck in, because after this next episode, it's going to be the longest fucking week of your life.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a pretty long week to get to where we are now, because even though I said there wasn't going to be any news this past week, there almost wasn't.
Yeah.
Until like 20 hours ago or something like that, when
I mean, they
some
waited
news
for
dropped.
Crouch, right? They waited for Platcher to be over
Yeah.
and for Crouch to have something to talk about.
It's how it always is. It's
Yeah.
how it always is.
Shout out to Phil.
So without further ado, let's get into the episode 210, everybody. Brought to you, as always, by our lovely patrons, Battle Crab, Refine Beam, Bronzebot Boohal, Chare, Prophet Picasso, Chris R34444, Casher67, Lolshin, Porkchop Sammy, Rick Zane, Sir Girth a Lot, Volamel Smooth Lutz, and Your Misery. 210, episode 2.10, that's what version we are on, is talking about this guy right here. This is, what do I have in here? Version 1 point something. We're going way back, you know. This is version 1.01. The OG that started it all is now the, I'd say, proud owner of ABK for a record deal, 68.7 billion. And I like to be accurate about that, because I've seen too many figures thrown around. You know, I've seen somebody say a lot of publications said 70 billion. Some have just said 69. It's a good chance to be funny, you know. Some have said 68. I think it's not hard to just say 68.7.
Yeah.
You know, I think once you get to 70, it's just like we're kind of being a little bit liberal with how we're rounding here, because that's a whole nother 1.3 billion you just lopped on top. And that's you know, once you get into the B's, once you see a big capital B, that's a lot of money. So you just added 1.3 extra billion to the sale when it's not worth that much. But 68.7 is like the biggest Microsoft acquisition ever, and I think the biggest Microsoft acquisition in all of gaming ever as well. It is an unreal acquisition. Actually, it's so surprising that I don't even think really, well, certainly none of the regular employees of ABK knew, because I think they all knew at the same time as the news dropping. If you're an executive at ABK, you probably did know, but everyone else, all the regulars, everyone below the C-suite, probably wouldn't have known until the exact time that the news dropped, and then the internal email went out.
Yeah, I mean,
so, they got hit with an esports.
John Spector even looked pretty surprised on Twitter, right?
Yeah, I don't think he would have known either. They wouldn't have told him.
Yep.
There's no reason to.
Yep. Yeah.
So Phil Spencer about to be your boss.
Yeah. Hopefully we get a Yule log with Mr. Spencer. Hopefully, you know, we get to ingratiate ourselves with our new macro hard overlords. I mean, you talk about 67, whatever the figure was, a lot of fucking money, $1 billion, right?
I just got the macro hard reference, by the way.
Lovely. Thank you. Like I don't think people realize, and I certainly didn't, God rest his soul, until Wreckful in one of, I think, his most iconic videos kind of pointed it out. He has a beautiful video. If you go on YouTube and you look up Wreckful billion, I think it's one of the first videos that pops up, where he kind of breaks down in increments of $100,000 what $1 billion actually looks like. Now look at that 67 times. Now, again, just to add a little bit more context to like just how big this was, right? Disney bought Marvel for $4 billion. Facebook bought
only
Instagram.
Yeah, I mean, no, you got to think about this differently. Yes, like
this isn't like the Marvel that we know now.
Yeah,
what it grew into.
That's ages ago, right?
Yeah,
this is ages ago. To be fair, Instagram $1 billion. Twitch, which I think is hilarious in retrospect, 970 million. Not even
no way. Amazon didn't, and that was big. I remember back in the day, I was like, "Do you know that Twitch nearly got bought out for $1 billion? Holy crap, nearly $1 billion!" That was big back in the day, because I think gaming was still, Twitch as well was just on the up and up, you know.
Yeah.
Just to kind of like, again, we're an esports podcast, but like just to like contextualize this for the average listener, this is not just a big gaming deal. This isn't even just a big tech deal. This is just one of the largest, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is one of the largest acquisitions that we've seen in recent memory. 67.8 billion dollars. 68.7.
Yep.
Like that's absurd money.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
I think based on the evaluation, based on those companies are stock traded, so you wouldn't include Valve, and evaluating Valve as a pure gaming company is probably also not correct, but I think it's like the 5th biggest like gaming company, even though the definition there is definitely like that Microsoft would be one, right? Which makes sense, definitely, but yeah, it's just in major size. There's not many bigger studios, or not even studios, but like publishers attached to that. And I mean, the premium on that is also pretty sweet. Let's be honest. I think closing share price the day before it happened was 65 a pop. So major, like if you had Activision Blizzard stock, you probably made a pretty penny over last night. So yeah, it's also.
Damn it! I should have invested.
So
I should have listened to Samito. Or it wasn't Samito. I'm sorry. It was
Frito. Yeah.
Frito. Yeah.
I think.
God, Frito knew. He knew. Anyway, sorry. Continue.
I think, for instance, like you could probably consider that something like this, like these moves, not that particular move, but was going to happen in the next couple of years, just because like the importance apparently for tech companies to rush to the metaverse and how important gaming companies are in that development, and the draw of them and the technology that they bring with them and the expertise, and a major acquisition there was to be highly likely, just like in that rush. I think it could have also theoretically been another major player like Facebook, for instance.
Sure.
But yeah, Microsoft flanking in at that premium price, like you're just likely to secure.
What's funny about all this is Microsoft also acquired ZeniMax Media, who
parent company that Bethesda.
Yeah, right. So Microsoft acquired ZeniMax Media 2 years ago in 2020, or like less than that, because we're only 1 month, half a month into 2021, so 2022 rather. So you could say it's like a year and a half even. Anyway, the point is, it wasn't that long ago that they just got ZeniMax Media, and that was only for 8.1 billion, which is still a lot of money, but compared to 68.7, is you haven't even gotten past the 60 part. Like there's still 600 million plus the 60 billion after that. You haven't even put a dent into the 60 yet. It's just wild, and that was ZeniMax Media is not, to me, is not a small company, because they have Bethesda, id Software. Well, actually, that's pretty much the flagships. After that, it's not ridiculous, but still, yeah, I don't look at ZeniMax and think, yeah, it's some tiny thing. Yeah, Bethesda's small. Bethesda is not small. Bethesda has a lot going for them, right? So even that acquisition doesn't even compare. I mean, I'm taking a look at a list of most expensive video game acquisitions. I was taking a look at the wrong list previously. I'm like, just a list of all acquisitions. I'm like, oh, dude, you know, Heinz acquired Kraft for 109 billion. You know, that's pretty big. That is actually pretty huge.
Yeah,
but it's totally different. Different, you know, industry and all that kind of stuff. And what Verizon apparently got Vodafone for 144. But again, this is just different. So sticking on to gaming here. Before Microsoft taking Activision Blizzard, was Take-Two getting Zynga for 12.7 billion. Was, I think, the largest acquisition. That was also this year at some point. Man, it's only been 19 or so days in the year. We've already had two major acquisitions. Tencent got Supercell, 81.4% in 2016 for 9.2 inflation adjusted. billion. And to put things really into perspective and context, this was a long time ago, but we all know how big Riot Games is now.
Yeah.
Tencent got a 93% stake in Riot Games in 2011, so over 10 years ago now, for 400 million. Which, looking at where Riot is now, is like, yo, that's a steal. But of course, 10 years ago, Riot was still an up and coming company, and not where it is now. But right, 400 million is what Tencent paid for a 93% stake in Riot, and they bought the remaining 7% in 2015 for an undisclosed price. But it wouldn't have been. I mean, it would have been a good number, but it wouldn't have been breaking the bank. It would be, somewhere within the realm of 400 again, or less than that actually. That deal wouldn't have even touched 1 billion. So we're talking about a really an unprecedented acquisition in the gaming tech space here, with Microsoft's just swooping up Activision Blizzard. It's unreal, actually. It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
it's nuts. I don't know if this is being put up on screen, but our producer Eric has listed the 2020's top M&A deals worldwide by value, and Microsoft and Activision's deal is third at 68.7. Ahead of them is companies that I couldn't tell you what they do or where they exist, and it's just stupid money. Like, this is
looks
nuts.
like above them, it looks like companies acquiring themselves. It was Unilever acquiring Unilever and BHP Group acquiring BHP Groups. Like, I don't know anything about these companies, but it looks like that meme of Obama giving himself a medal.
Thanks, Obama.
This is what that looks like, but I don't know. Discovery Inc. got AT&T. Everyone knows AT&T if you're American, so actually only the Americans know.
Telecommunications.
That was 43 billion.
This is it's hard to like understand the scope, and it's also hard to like know what this means for anything. Like, this is nuts. It probably won't mean anything anytime soon, but like this is crazy. But it doesn't feel crazy.
Oh, to put it into context for what it does mean. So if we run down all the facts so far, let's actually do a quick fact rundown, and then we'll get into some other details here. But one of the things to take into account is that the deal is obviously not anywhere near completion, and it won't be until like a full year from now, until we get to the end of the fiscal year for Microsoft in June 2023, before we actually see a conclusion to this, and they still have to go through all the legal stuff, all the antitrust stuff and SEC and all that to make sure that this is all legal before they can even make the acquisition happen. So it's not a done deal by any account. And I mean, the other thing to really take into account, and we'll go over each of these things individually, is that Bobby Kotick apparently will be stepping away from ABK once it's all said and done, once the deal is complete at June 2023, which is the projected timeline for this. And then Phil Spencer will be the person that ABK reports to as the CEO of Xbox and Microsoft Gaming.
It's still just so... Like, I remember waking up and reading this. Like, today, I woke up and like saw I had 60 messages just from our Discord chat alone, let alone other people like outside of esports being like, "Hey, did you see that Microsoft bought Blizzard? That's crazy."
Yeah.
Like, this was whiplash, bro. Whiplash.
Yeah. And of course, like, the implications of that, it's really hard to judge, but like, of course, I mean, the immediate connection, especially for all of us who are closely tied to Blizzard ecosystems, there's definitely a lot of uncertainty there now, right? It's unsure if good type of situation. There are certainly aspects that are for sure going to be good. So for one, it's like these acquisitions, from my understanding, always tend to go down with a cleaning house type of situation of like the upper executives who I mean, let's be honest, we're the most responsible for whatever shit went down at that company for last more than a decade, right? So I guess like within the next 2 or 3 years, we can expect a majority of those responsible for that to be gone from the company. That once again should, I mean, let's be honest, it will probably reinvigorate interest of sponsors that we might have lost. That will definitely also, I mean, okay, naming that as the first aspect is probably insensitive. Of course, it will help workers be more respected first and foremost. And maybe the goal of being one of the most inclusive companies will actually come true because of that. But yeah, I think in general, I guess like I'm feeling skeptically optimistic at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you guys like. Did you go through the full 7 stages of suffering with that news and just like second guessing?
Suffering. I think it's overall good. I look at this, I'm like, well, this has got to be good, right? Like I looked at this, I'm like, I can't see this being bad unless Phil Spencer is somehow worse than Bobby Kotick, or Microsoft somehow just force a bunch of BS onto the ABK products, which is negative. But I feel like that would, I mean,
it could be bad in the short, right?
I actually don't think anything happens in the short term. Is the thing?
That's
like, nothing.
bad.
In the next 2 years, what define short term? Because I look at the next 2 years as no impact really. I mean, they've even stated that ABK will still, work autonomously until the deal is at least complete.
Yes, but
and then beyond that,
the practice of getting that deal ready will be extra work required for a lot of different cogs in the machine, slowing down processes
on the
further.
business side, maybe on the business side, I from the development side, I think they're pretty parallel. They just do their own thing, and I don't think they're really affected. I don't think Xbox doesn't come down with anything huge.
You're not going to
straight away.
You're not going to start getting any major changes on the way, right? With that,
yeah, of course.
For example, like based on that timeline, let's just say it's June 2023 because that's the date being put on record currently. Overwatch 2 is expected to be released by then. I mean, God forbid it gets delayed further. I mean, you never know really, but it's supposed to be released well and truly, definitely before June 2023. It's got to be, right? So that means there's zero Xbox have zero impact coming in. They really shouldn't have any impact coming in at all. And they also mentioned that they weren't going to. Well, they mentioned that they didn't want to change the platform relationships that Blizzard currently have. I'll just speak to the Blizzard side because I don't know about COD, but maybe it's actually all of ABK. That they would respect that, and which basically means that Overwatch 2 could come out on PlayStation and Switch and all that kind of stuff. And that maybe Call of Duty get to stay on PlayStation as well, because that was the other big question. Is like, well, does that mean all these products now go full Xbox exclusive? And when we were sort of talking about this before with Eric as well, it's like, well, I mean, that would actually complicate the whole antitrust thing. And one of the factors within the antitrust to get past that for this deal to be legal is that you can't just take all these ABK games and make them Xbox exclusives, because that would breach the antitrust potentially as one of the barriers.
Yep, it's just so wide reaching too. Like they have their fingers in everything. Microsoft is just so big. It's nuts.
They don't have a private army yet.
I feel like they might not need one.
I think they should get into space exploration, and they should get a private army. So when they compete with SpaceX and they get to Mars, well, guess what, bitches? We have an army and you don't.
True.
So they get to with the military now colonize Mars militaristically. So take that, Elon. What you gonna do?
I mean, to kind of answer Yiska's question, I mean, I didn't know what to think, to be honest. Like, a giant company trades hands. Like I agree with the sentiment that like there was a lot of like bad seeds at the top of the table for Activision Blizzard that, you know, yes, I'm glad that are being shuffled out, but I don't know how this affects things in the future. I don't know what kind of vision, you know, our new overlords, you know, will bring upon. I could not tell you. I don't know how to feel.
Because it's still a mega corporation. You have to
Yeah.
you have to hope that they're better than the previous mega corporation overlords. And it does feel like a lot of the C-suite, or really the entire C-suite for ABK, was just Bobby and friends, right? It's just a bunch of his mates. It's just a bunch of his buddies from the Republican Party and wherever he gets them from. Some of the Bush cabinet people, like I don't know why those were the people that he decided he'd bring onto ABK, but whatever. I mean, because they were so tied to Bobby that if Bobby goes, maybe Microsoft do just clean house in the C-suite and just redo that. That you'd hope that those should be good, but again, it's just hard to know. Well, are we just out of the frying pan into the fire at that stage? Because you could very easily get a Bobby 2.0. Very easily. You could also very easily just replace everybody in that C-suite with worse people. It's hard, it's so difficult to tell.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think one safe assumption is that, you know, Xbox Game Pass or Game Pass for PC is definitely going to be thrusted down our gullets for the next long while, if you're into anything Activision Blizzard related. For better or worse.
Subscribe. You can still just buy the game.
Nope, agreed. But you know, it's definitely going to be popping up in your feeds. It's definitely going to be, you know, maybe on the Blizzard launcher. You know,
to be fair,
it's going to be all over the
Game
place.
Pass is a great initiative.
It is a good thing.
I think everybody unanimously agrees that it's a great thing. It's like fantastic. A really good. It's not predatory. The deal is fantastic. What I sound like a spokesperson right now, but what you here's how you know I'm not a spokesperson. I'm not actually subscribed to Game Pass, but I know other people think it's good. I'm personally not subscribed because I actually don't know. Maybe I should, but I don't know. I'm not a fan of you. Here's why I'm not subscribed. I did trial once, and I'm not a fan of how their client works and all the UI and where I couldn't even. Here's an example. I couldn't find the files and the data for the games to even like I don't know, mess with my files. I don't know. Like I couldn't like where the shit is. Where is my stuff stored? It's just so weird. Like I just so desperately want it to be more like Steam.
Yeah.
But I feel like every client I touch, I just desperately want it to be more like Steam. At least the Battle.net client, I'm like, okay, I get to choose where my shit is installed. I could do my stuff with it. It's fine. I don't know. I just wasn't a fan of the Game Pass client, but I still think it's a good deal. It's from a value perspective a great deal.
Oh, it's insane.
I don't mind if they shove it in my face. One day maybe I'll get it. Who knows?
What I will say is, like, when we're on the topic of like, is this good, is this bad? I've seen a bunch of like stupid takes communicating certainty, which definitely, Jesus fucking Christ, you don't understand real life, guys.
Hang them out to dry.
Like, so I think one thing that I also noticed was even people that do know have very wide variety of opinions about what might be coming topical. So, for instance, Jason Schreier said, like, if he wasn't on vacation, he'd be calling up his lawyer friends, asking if there's any way this deal doesn't go through, right? Or because of legal implications of just like the size of that deal, right?
Yeah.
And others saying that's probably not going to be an issue, right?
Sure.
So there are definitely legitimate discussions to be had. I feel like the tea leaf reading on what it could imply for esports is completely misplaced. Like none of the basically everything that you guys want to sell me as a signal has been nothing but noise. Like, well, Halo Esports gets investment. Motherfucker, that shit says nothing. It actually says absolutely nothing towards Microsoft's willingness to invest into Blizzard Esports further on. Like,
because the investment in HCS is honestly kind of
like
minimal.
nobody wakes up in the morning just goes like, esports pretty good, and I unconditionally will invest into every single thing that has esports label attached to it. Like it's such an infantile idea of like believing in things. It is about the measurement of the deal. And let's be honest, it doesn't look like that the leaks that Activision Blizzard has right now are the sweetest around that. Let's not forget that a lot of the deals made there were based on pretty close personal relationships that Bobby Kotick specifically had, and a new owner might or might not care about them as deeply. I assume that for some companies it makes sense not to piss off billionaires, even though I will say, how pissed off would you be about losing like 20 million as someone? I mean, you would be. You. Okay, this is once again, I'm also oversimplifying, so I don't want to make the same mistake. But that in itself is weird. Then, man. So the stock price of Activision jumped because we sold at $95 a share, right? Where does that money go? It doesn't. Beyond
Overwatch League, every single dollar.
Beyond the implication of like the company having like a better image, being able to attract more sponsors, theoretically with a higher valuation, having a higher confidence interval attached to them. But motherfucker, not a single dime is going through the operational systems within Activision Blizzard because they didn't actually sell their stock. Where do you think the stock was bought from? Like, where do you think this money is now going? It isn't Activision Blizzard, bro. Someone owned that shit. They were paid out handsomely, shareholders, and that now the majority shares with Microsoft, and that's the transfer of that we're speaking of. Where's the money that now is accessible to esports and it's trickling down? The fuck are you talking about? So that's bullshit. Before go ahead. Before we like have definitive statements, I'm not sure if there is even a plan right now, or there could be, based on not having the absolute most intricate numbers on of the specifics of the esports scene and whatnot. Let's not forget that this is currently a transitional period for especially Overwatch, but also the problems with CDL and whatnot. Like it's just, I don't know, beware of bad takes, because my God, man, like the option to shut the fuck up is definitely like, I probably should take my own advice because I don't nearly know enough. I just know what is obvious bullshit, right? Like that, it can't be based on. Yeah. Stop like spreading noise. It's so annoying.
Can I echo an interesting point to the two of you to kind of gauge your takes on this? Fish sticks.
We're getting off the fence pretty early.
Wow, man, that raid was also unreal. Okay, keep going.
Okay, I view this with some nostalgia because I grew up, my esports culture came through the MLG circuit, but in Fishstick's thread on the implications of Microsoft's purchase of Activision Blizzard, he mentioned that because COD, Overwatch, and Halo now are kind of living under the umbrella that is Microsoft, does this open up a MLG style circus of esports, this kind of celebration of esports under
circus of esports?
You got you got some stops, you got the Old Spice, you got some Stride gum, shout outs to the the real ones who remember all that, the Hot Pocket flavor grenades, all that good shit, right? Like, is that something A, you think would be successful, and B, is that something you would like to see?
Everything under one roof and multi-game World Cup events.
God, I
Same
can't
old
wait
shit.
to wear some clown makeup to be part of the circus.
I don't know, man. I feel like we've
congregate all
outgrown
the
that.
clowns together.
Okay.
We should have outgrown that. Like
It's only. Go on. We should have outgrown that.
like
I agree.
imagine like, okay, so we have 16 esports under one company. We're all hosting it in one arena, while the LPL finals are like already 10x in comparison. Like that's not a dream. That's like a life support strategy. It's fine that the people that like created that dream 15 years ago still think this is dope. And yes, they like these guys brought esports a long way. That can't be the scope of our growth potential, right? Like we should be further than that. And we aren't in these leagues, to be perfectly fair. I don't think we're close. And that one is more realistic. But to frame this as a dream is a weird take for me. I don't know.
I think there's a lot of nostalgia at play there, but I don't think that having a big circus of esports is necessarily the best thing for each of those esports. I think they operate on different levels with potentially different goals. I mean, the end goal might all be the same. They all just want to be successful, get viewership, make money, blah, 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 and be self-sustainable. Yeah, but to get there, the pathway can be different. Like, I already think that, for big franchise esports, assuming it all stays the way it is, so, jury's out on that, but we'll just assume it is staying the way it is. CDL and OWL, they're big franchise esports that need to be doing their own thing. Like, this is not, you don't have a big fucking circus for the NFL and the NBA and whatever else together. It's just, and they all have their clown makeup. It just doesn't make sense, man. It's just not what it is. Like, you have different, your separate sports in their own, doing their own things with their own strategies, and that's what I think is the most beneficial for those esports. I think, like, it sounds fun to have this giant conglomerate of esports all under one roof and to do some massive event for it. But I mean, Yiska's right. You could do that and then watch over the other side of the fence where one region of a single esport, your biggest competitor as far as esports goes in League of Legends, one region there is just like does 10 times better than your entire conglomerate does as a collective. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's the best strategy to be lopping it all together. That is, in one sense, sounds cool, but I think is a weak move to do. It's very weak. Whereas a strong thing to do to reject strength and to actually realize strength is to address what is the actual needs of these specific esports and how do you achieve its specific goals.
Agree. I think the best way that Microsoft can project strength into these communities is to bring back Heroes of the Storm esports and introduce Master Chief as its new addition.
The thing is,
we shouldn't go that far, Joe. I mean, that's
now that's strength.
That's very hopeful. That's very hopeful. I mean, that's like, I don't. I was going to make a crude reference, but I'm not even going to go there. But there's some ways I can. I don't. You know what? I'm not going to go there. I don't even want to go there. I was going to say something about flopping out my deck, but like that's projecting strength. But it's also like, you're not going to go there. We don't want to take it that far.
Nah.
That's another thing, like, about Microsoft. They seem so, because they're a major company, like, they're necessarily valueless, right? It's not like, let's say theoretically, and it doesn't make sense from the scale of both companies or size, but like if Gabe Newell bought Activision Blizzard, you could make more tells where this ride is going, like open systems, like reintroducing third party, based on the precedent of 2 esports that they currently have running, right? With subsidized events, propped up by in-game sales that they are like putting minimal effort to over the year, right? That's something reasonable to expect. I don't think Microsoft has nearly that profile. Microsoft Gaming doesn't have that profile, and however small you might want to break that down, I don't think they have really substantiated a modus operandi, if you want, about how they go about these things.
Your French is pretty good.
Like, even even like recent gaming acquisitions with Bethesda or whatever, like we're not really far along enough into that cycle to really tell anything from that movement. So yeah, I don't know. Like, embrace the fall, I guess. Well fallen. No reason to really like, grasp white knuckles to like other falling debris and pretend we're standing on it. And just like see what happens. But I guess like if you wanted to make an estimate, I think if anything, you'd probably be down on esports. Or at least franchise esports for now. And you'd probably be I mean, just Halo as like a precedent. I'm sure there are other examples, but I don't know. Like, once again, I don't think there's a majority tell within Microsoft's movement as to communicate that esports is this big thing. To be honest, I'm currently pretty like pessimistic about the future of esports in the first place, unless you're League of Legends. But it feels like some are figuring out entertainment more. I've long held the feeling that this younger generation doesn't have as much of a desire for competitive content as maybe our generation did. So we'll see. I feel like we cared way more about the actual game than the entertainment surrounding it, but maybe that's...
So the Zoomers, man. Zoomers are at it again. Zoomers really do ruin everything, don't they?
I mean, they're not at fault. That the environment created around them makes them so... Like, they're constantly competing anyway. You log onto your phone, you're on social media, and now you're competing with like an Instagram model or the funniest people at the... Like,
I think it's just easier to blame them. So I'm just going to blame the Zoomers. Yeah, fuck them. I'm going to have a take, which is just like an extremely neutral status quo take, where like actually nothing happens, or very little happens, and nothing really changes. And we have all the stuff like, well, HCS isn't franchise. Maybe Microsoft doesn't like franchise. I'm like, well, maybe they just won't change anything.
Yeah.
Maybe they're like, you know what, Blizzard, you do you. You guys, you just keep doing you. You're fine. We'll change up some management and do some other stuff around the block, and maybe have some impact on how IPs are developed and what new games will come out. And people are like, oh, I hope we get a StarCraft 3. And they're like, well, maybe we'll see.
I don't get that. Where is that coming from?
It's coming from people who just want to see StarCraft 3. But that's not the point, though. My point is like, there's a like very optimistic way to view this. There's a more pessimistic way to view this, and then there's just a very status quo way to view this, which is the way I'm viewing it right now. Which is I just don't think that much is going to change. Like, okay, yeah, you're going to see all these ABK products suddenly on the Xbox Game Pass, cool, and maybe Microsoft have some, they have more say on like, yeah, like, hey, make this game, or like do a sequel for this, or like, I don't know, some stuff like that. But I as far as control and how much input they're willing to have, they might not need to have that much input or want to have that much input. And sometimes, like, I think Activision had too much input. Like, Activision's input on Blizzard in the long term, like, my opinion is that it's all pretty negative. Like, it actually ruined things. So you almost just want, and I guess I'm talking about old Blizzard here, but you actually just kind of want Blizzard to be Blizzard and for them to do their thing and make the games on their own time schedule. Like the old Blizzard way, which is it's done when it's done. At least at the time, created some fantastic games, and you could really see the artistry in what they made, because these are like, I almost describe the games as like AAA passion projects, which is essentially what they were. Because you had people that cared more about the art form of gaming rather than the business of it. Which is also Jeff Kaplan in a nutshell, by the way. And his conflict with the C-suite is, I don't know if it's well documented, but that's like a large reason of why he left, and a large reason why probably a lot of the old school Blizzard guys left, and why they're all working for Mike again in Dreamhaven or wherever else they are, in those new incubators. But
I mean, that's also a major problem for Blizzard with their PR. Like, one of the big reasons why Blizzard was so successful was like, they created some of the favorite games of a generation. Then that generation became competent professionals, and they were willing to work at Blizzard to create their childhood dreams anew or improve on them, probably for pennies for the actual labor, right?
Mm.
And if you lose that aspect and that status, and people are like, even in nerd cycles are less like, oh yeah, I work for Blizzard. Oh, you work for Blizzard? High status communicated. Now it's like, I work for Blizzard. Oh, are you all right? Like, are you overworking? Are you being treated well? That just like attracts differently, right? So
I blame Activision for that.
yes,
True.
And I think that might also be helped a little bit. Of course, like this is down the line stream, like type of situations, even though immediate hires might be easier. But yeah, I think those are improvements. I think Eric makes a selling point about like status quo being held by other previously purchased or integrated companies for Microsoft, such as LinkedIn, Mojang, some Minecraft developers.
Mojang's correct.
The thing is, like, Skype is also one. For instance, Skype, not a success story for me. Like, Skype, if anything, was actually one of the companies that through lack of innovation and like lack of improvement of the product actually fell behind. It is crazy that you can be the leading video telecommunication internet softwares, and during a pandemic
then everyone uses Zoom.
Yes. And then during a pandemic where your product should be like making nutty money is replaced by Zoom just because it's a better product, right? Like
It's because they were working on Skype 2 for too long.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this feels like Xerox all over again. You know, like Xerox, like in the 90s, were like super far ahead of the copying companies to the degree that, I mean, to Xerox is still a verb in English, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. So they used to have such a big lead. They actually, I think they invented the mouse and shit like this. And now who the fuck cares about Xerox?
True. Yeah.
Right. So
I don't even know who they are. I googled their name wrong. That's how much I didn't know who they were.
Yeah, like they could have been definitely like apple-sized at the moment, right?
For sure.
So yeah, I think there is some fear of just only
if ABK don't make new good games, or their existing franchises don't do well from a live service standpoint. I mean, Overwatch 2 has a really high chance of being successful, which, like, I don't know, sounds maybe too optimistic coming from me, but I mean, if they actually push the reset button properly, monetize it properly, and it's actually a fun game, you know, it can last a long time, and that's like the live service game that ABK has wanted for a long time. But even beyond that, like, if they keep making, I was gonna say just keep making Call of Duties, they got to do something where. But the problem with Call of Duty has always been that every now and then you'll get a good one, and then the next Call of Duty is bad, and then you get another good one and a bad one, just because the vision for Call of Duty is just so different every single game, and that's just hard to handle. But
different depths.
I'm pretty sure people will say, "Oh, Call of Duty is like dying," and it's like, okay, you got one bad game, but the next one might be good, and then, you know, the ship will turn around instantly just off the new release. It would have to be like, for this Xerox analogy, this example to come true for this acquisition, ABK would have to make some really big flops. Like, their entire thing, like all ABK would have to flop pretty hard on releases. Like Diablo 4 would have to be a shit show. Overwatch 2 would have to be a shit show. The next Call of Duty would have to be another shit show. Would have to tank Call of Duty's confidence, all that kind of stuff. Like, you have to have a lot of things go wrong in a row, and then no successes come through. And you're already building on, I would say, like a lot of A, market share, and B, I want to say good faith. even though that sounds like a bit of a meme with some of the ABK products currently. But I mean, there's a lot of people that are willing to come back and still play those games. A lot of people that still love those games. I'm a little bit worried about Warcraft because I don't know what direction WoW is going to go in and
Dragons.
how they can save that, because unfortunately you're so deep in WoW in terms of the time it's been out and alive and supported that I don't know if they're going to just run into, or if they already have run into, blocks where where else do you take the game? It's just getting, you've almost scope creeped yourself into a bit of a situation. So I don't know about Warcraft, but the other franchises I still see good things happening. I still see Overwatch and Diablo having great futures because there's still a lot of space left to grow in, and I still see Call of Duty doing the same thing it does, but maybe figuring out what the fans actually want and having a bit more consistency in their releases. Also, like, their mobile games do super well. Candy Crushers, I don't know if that's still a big mobile. I have to assume it is because it makes a lot of money. And Call of Duty Mobile does super well as well. I'm not a mobile gamer, so it's not on my radar. But for the people that do play mobile, like, that's apparently a big deal. So they got that going for them. I don't see ABK flopping anytime soon.
No,
I think they got big releases coming up. They still got some really strong franchises, and they have one franchise that I think is maybe a legitimate trouble, and that's just Warcraft.
Yep. Would agree.
Even though to different degrees,
Sure. To kind of pose this to the both of you, because I was about to join AVRL on Take Island with this whole thing, because it is so hard to like work through. Like, what does it mean? I don't know. It's a lot of money. It's really big. Like, it's a megacorp. Like, what the fuck? How do you navigate this? It's weird. But I've kind of talked myself out of Take Island, and I'm kind of interested on your guys' thoughts on this. Like, is this we've seen the status quo with other game acquisitions from Microsoft's end. They've purchased ZeniMax, who's the parent company of Bethesda, obviously with Skyrim and Elder Scrolls and all that kind of stuff. They have Mojang, obviously Minecraft fame. They have some big hitters in terms of just gaming in general. Do we see like a conglomerate Microsoft launcher akin to maybe what Blizzard's done with the Blizzard launcher? Like, are we getting a one-stop shop for the
Isn't that the Xbox store? Isn't that just the Xbox store?
It's like,
pretty much, just worse.
Worse.
I mean,
what do you mean worse? What?
Nah, it's hard.
It already is worse. How much
hard.
Worse can we get?
It's pretty bad. I don't know. Like, if anything, I kind of wish it was just on whatever proprietary stuff Blizzard's got with the Blizzard launcher, but maybe I'm biased. The Microsoft store is kind of ass.
I mean,
I think because there's already a precedent set for things that exist. It's almost better just to leave it. You just like. There's already a BNet launcher. People are already used to a certain system. Unless like it's super important for you as a company to consolidate it all under the Xbox store, just fucking leave it. Just don't touch that. Like, it's just, sometimes the status quo is fine. Just leave it as it is. Until it needs to be changed, I don't see a real reason to go off the deep end right now. And you're not just dealing with the Blizzard products. You're dealing with all the Bethesda products, like you mentioned, the Skyrims and the Elder Scrolls, and you have the id games as well, the Quakes and the Dooms and stuff like that. I mean, did you know that Bethesda have their own launcher as well for all their games?
Oh,
yeah, they
no
do.
Clue.
Yeah, because I got a free code for Wolfenstein Youngblood, right?
Oh,
and to redeem this code, I did download it through the Bethesda launcher.
I see.
And I don't know. I don't know. It's a game where I think it's like a co-op game anyway, and I need to know somebody else who has the game. And I'm like, I just couldn't be bothered. I just didn't play it, and so I just didn't go through all that kind of stuff. But yeah, they have a Bethesda launcher with all the Bethesda games, and they're like Fallout's on there and everything. So every company's got their own launcher, and maybe it would be good for Xbox and Microsoft to all put that under the same roof. But at the same time, it's just like maybe not so much for the Bethesda launcher, but definitely for the BNet launcher for Activision Blizzard. It's like, I don't know, like, we have a thing already. We have a set system that works.
Yeah.
It currently works. Why mess with that?
I guess in my like sugar plum dream is that it doesn't mess with it, it just adds to it. Like we got with like Destiny 2 was just like added in, like, okay, cool, like you have WoW, you have Warcraft, you then oh boom, Destiny, like cool, I could just like play Destiny from here. That's kind of neat. Like what if I could just play Skyrim from the BNet launcher? That's pretty cool. I could play whatever id software is coming up with next.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, I might check it out.
If they're all being added to the BNet launcher, but I don't think that's what we're talking about. We're talking about adding everything to the Xbox client, to the Game Pass client.
I was just looking at it from like a, you know, an integration standpoint. Like you have all of these studios. Do we see a mass push in the next X amount of years for mass integration into one, you know, slick launcher for Microsoft, be it the store with a rehaul or somebody else's, but just rebranded?
I mean,
if they can improve their launcher and their client, I'm full for it. I just don't really like their client currently.
Ditto. Same.
I think their interoperability will definitely be one of the goals, especially if you're looking at their messages and their presentation. Like this is a metaverse move.
Yep.
Like the bare minimum is connecting all your company's virtual worlds in some space.
Right.
So
Yep.
I think the collected platform is only the first step, and then bringing that into like a somewhat metaversial experience is just like, it feels very high probability.
If they want to
Feels
compete
like
with Steam, then they should bring it all under one roof. Yeah.
Mhm.
And part of me looks at this and thinks like, it is Microsoft. I think they would want to compete with Steam. Like, why would they not?
Yeah.
They could be one of the few companies that actually can compete with Steam to try and, you know, get people to use something different. Because, you know, we all know what EA have Origin to dubious results. I think Origin's kind of, at this point, I think they've even admitted failure, because all these Origin exclusive games where you have to use Origin to play these EA games, you can just play them on Steam now. EA's just gonna fuck it, and they just put them all on Steam now. You can even do the whole EA Play subscriber thing, which is basically Game Pass but only for EA games. So the value offering is way worse. That's even available on Steam now. You don't even have to use. I think it maybe still goes through Origin, but the point is they are selling these products on Steam. And yes, there's EGS as well. This is the Epic Game Store, but I guess EGS does compete, but they're kind of, I don't know, their strategy is interesting because they're kind of buying exclusives. They're almost following a console strategy where they're buying exclusive rights to the distribution of certain games, usually for a year or however long it is, or maybe some of it's permanent. I don't know. And competing that way by almost forcing people to go to EGS if you want to play a certain game for the first year. I mean, Borderlands was there, Hades was there, the new Darkest Dungeon is there. I'm naming certain games. There's probably like way more games than that. But Microsoft actually had, because of the way the Game Pass works and how popular that is, on top of now owning ABK and then having all these games that they actually own, as well as I think their store sells a bunch of stuff that just generally exists on the market. I think a good Microsoft store for digital products and games could definitely overtake EGS soon, and then look to compete with Steam in the long term.
Yeah. I think I would side with Yiska and say it's probable. I guess my big hangup is like, how or why hasn't it happened yet? Obviously the store has existed. That goes without saying. But when you pick up ZeniMax, when you pick up Mojang, you have all these like just triple A, you know, for God's sakes, like Minecraft YouTube is somehow still a thing, and it's almost bigger than it was in the past. I feel like these are games that people like want to play. How are they not under one like streamlined roof yet? That's where I'm just a little like, huh. It's a little weird, but yeah. Long and short of it from my end, I don't know what this does to esports. Hopefully it's something good.
So let's talk about the actual esports side of it. Like, so we've established that yes, $68.7 million is directly being put into Overwatch League. And you know, I'll probably see none of that. What does it all mean? No, so there's obviously none of that money is going to any of the esports. I don't know if how are Microsoft very hands-on HCS. I don't know why it is, but my read on this whole thing is that the HCS is run. I mean, obviously Microsoft have a division to run that. I don't think it's like a huge focus for them, and that leads me to believe. I wouldn't say they're hands off, but they're not like it's not a big deal for them. Like they're not pushing. They're not dropping huge amounts of money on HCS with massive. They're not doing franchising. They're not doing. They don't have gigantic ambitions for HCS. Is what I'm trying to get to at the end of the day. That's my point. Which says to me that I don't know that Microsoft are very hands-on with the esports at all. That's not to say they don't care about it and they don't want to do anything with it. I'm sure they'll want to do stuff, but for them it's not a priority, right? At least that's my read on it. What I see is I don't think it's a priority for Microsoft.
I would agree.
Which leads me down the path of, and some people might read that as negative, like, oh my god, that means the esports is going to be dead and all that sort of thing. But I read that as a neutral. I read that as a status quo, which means Overwatch League, Call of Duty League, stuff like that. They just continue as normal. They just continue as they are, assuming all the partners want to continue. So the partners here being the franchise teams. If they want to continue as things are, then we just continue as things are. That's my kind of read on the situation, because I don't think Microsoft are going to come in and be too heavy-handed about anything. If anything, this falls under John Spector in a way as well, because he's the head of commercial for Overwatch, and unless his job's changing or whatever, then I still see the Overwatch League falling under him primarily. Yeah, he'll have to report to somebody and all that kind of stuff, but if we follow the history of where Microsoft have been, outside of adding these games onto the Game Pass in the Xbox store, I don't know that too much is going to change. I think the esports will just continue as it is. It's not necessarily a positive or a negative. It just is a full neutral.
Yeah, I would kind of echo back to I think what you said, Avril. Like, do we know how much or what kind of like hands-on approach or hands-off approach Microsoft's going to have? Are these companies going to operate kind of on their own terms? Like, it's likely that we just continue on, and there's probably just a new person that League Ops has to adhere to, or that's their new point of contact, and we keep on keeping on. Like, it maybe we see increased sponsorship gain years down the road when things get a little bit more integrated from the top down. I think it's probably going to take some time before like the esports side of things really sees any kind of like significant change. If anything, it's going to come from like you guys said, like the C-suite down, and maybe the developers are the first to see like actual change in their daily life, which seems to be a positive trend. But again, we're pretty small. Like,
I mean, the guy that I don't know if it's going to be Phil Spencer, but the guy that John Spector might report to could be, they could be heavy-handed, they could be so light-handed. It's literally the "Are you winning, son?" meme. It just comes and like, "Hey, what are you doing? You winning, son? All right," and just leaves again. Like it's like a bunch of nothing, which is maybe fine. Like I think sometimes the best way to go about it is to just kind of let the people who know what they're doing do what they're doing.
Yep.
And I mean, some change might happen, but I don't think Microsoft is going to come down. And this is again just my speculation, my personal take on. I don't think Microsoft's going to come down and be like, now you're going to do the Overwatch League like this, and you have to do it this way and do that thing and have this and have that. I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're just going to be like, well, is what you're doing good? Is it working? Do you need any help? Like, is there? I think it'd be up to ABK and Activision Blizzard to come up to Microsoft and say, hey, we need these things. We want to do. We have certain ambitions for our esports, and we want to do certain things, and we need help with that. And help here is just euphemism for money, really. Like, give us some more money for it. But yeah, it'll be, to me, it's like we are wanting to do something with the esports leagues. We need more funding. we're gonna ask for a bigger budget. We're gonna try and justify that budget, and then that's it. That's how it's gonna go.
Can I ask a really
just-
dumb question?
Yeah.
Like, and this does relate to what you're saying in esports as a whole, or Overwatch League as a whole. Like, does this move separate the A and the B? Like, is this like a division of Activision and Blizzard? Or is that up to Microsoft?
It sounds like a. I mean, do you want to answer legally? I don't know. Like legally, I don't know how that all works. Like, I guess
Sure.
Microsoft can just like do whatever they want with it, and they can separate or combine Activision Blizzard as much as they want or don't want. Like, if they really want, if they just own the whole thing, I guess if they really wanted, they can just treat them like different. I mean, they already are really different studios, aren't they? Well, Activision, you don't even know if you can call that a studio, because Activision comprises of all the comprised of the Treyarch and the Infinity Wars. It's already its own thing. But I mean, I don't know. I don't even know how to begin dissecting that. Really,
Yeah,
it's quite complicated.
Yeah, makes sense. It's weird. Because I just wonder if like if you subscribe to the idea that maybe Activision was slowly like creeping into Blizzard and making a lot of the decisions, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but the thing is, like, do you think those people making that decision and having that autonomy within that, do you think they will still be here in 2 or 3 years' time? And at that point, the division is not really what you're concerned with. You're concerned with like a value creep into Blizzard, because I mean,
true.
The fact that Activision has been a lot more loose on how they tell their studios to handle their game development morals is pretty evident, right? Like compare Overwatch to Call of Duty, right? Like Call of Duty is inherently has in-game features that are way less protective and way more toxicity using than Overwatch ever was. So I think like in general, if you think that value creep will continue, I would say that really depends who stays, who doesn't. And also what the numbers are and what is to be expected, right?
For sure. Yeah.
I think already, like if anything, I think we're already seeing that value shift probably with Overwatch 2. That thing probably already happened, and we do well not to misattribute once we have the results in our hands and what kind of direction we are taking. But I could already see a much more aggressive monetization scheme for Overwatch 2. I could see
that was already going to happen, though.
Right.
Yeah.
I could see
that's got nothing to do with Microsoft.
Yes, exactly. Like, I could see like certain game design decisions to be way more all-encompassing of the full range of human emotions, i.e., let's rage at scoreboards. So we'll see. But I think whatever is encroaching there, it probably already is emotion. And given the situation and the timescales at which this happens, I think like whatever is going to happen in the short term has already been determined internally. We just haven't heard of it yet because, once again, we haven't heard shit from this game.
True. Based, as the kids say.
Right.
Yeah. So, any sort of closing thoughts from anybody on the whole Microsoft thing before we move away from it? It's quite a hefty topic. We spent a long time on this because this has been really. Do I dare even say news of the week? It's so much bigger than news of the week. Anything else to add? Obviously, Kodak is on his way out, as pretty much confirmed.
Happy about some of the leadership changes, but is this the savior of the Overwatch League? Did we need saving? Probably. Is this gonna do it? I don't know.
I don't think
Maybe.
Microsoft has any impact on this. I just
No,
think like
probably not.
I think the only thing that saves Overwatch League is Overwatch 2 and the success or lack thereof of that game. That's it. That's legitimately it. Now, obviously, Microsoft have a vested interest in how well Overwatch 2 does because they would like to see one of their games do well. But
Sure.
I mean, yeah. Again, not a single cent from that acquisition money is going to the Overwatch League, so it's not like the acquisition does anything personally for the Overwatch League. At least not immediately. Not in the near future. Not in the next few years. Nothing's going to happen.
We're looking at Overwatch 3 before we start to see major changes.
I mean, if Overwatch 2 does what it's supposed to do, there won't be an Overwatch 3.
Shouldn't be. Fingers
Hey,
crossed.
Activision's not in charge anymore. Kodak's not there. Kodak won't be there to be like, all right, now make another one. Like,
where is it on mobile?
Oh well. Yeah, I'm not sure where I am with this. I think general upside should be slightly optimistic based on this move. My hope is that the good people that have been inspired by a generation of games some 10 to 15 to 20 years ago can continue to find a place within that company at that scale to provide top tier AAA titles to us, unencumbered on their morals and like I'm not even sure if I would use that word correctly. German, by the way. But just get to do dope shit, really, right? That's sort of the point. I hope this, whatever this is, hopefully this provides a moral boost internally to the team and makes like working on the tight deadline a little bit more bearable. I will also say I greatly enjoyed the energy that Mark Morheim's likes brought to Twitter. He liked 2 TLO tweets, which I enjoyed. The first one, let me quickly read them out. So the first one was, imagine telling someone 10 years ago that Microsoft buying Blizzard would be universally welcomed by the community. Now, okay, universally welcomed, interesting definition. I'm not sure if that's necessarily true. But generally speaking, yeah, I guess definitely like a positive aura surrounding this. And then the second one is even more interesting, is TLO tweets and Mike Morheim likes. Save StarCraft, please, at Xbox. So, yeah.
I'm sure Mike would love to see more StarCraft stuff.
Sure he would.
I think like the whole universally welcome. I don't know if it's universally welcome because some people might be quite skeptical about it, but at this point it can't. You have to imagine. You never say never, but at this point it can't be worse than Activision being in charge, right? You'd take anybody. You'd much sooner take Microsoft being in charge than Activision being in charge, especially under Kodak and what he values in business.
Right.
You know, Kodak really is the kind of guy that wants to milk a franchise dry as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And you hope Microsoft aren't those people, but I don't know how Phil Spencer does business. I don't know what his priorities are. It's so hard to tell, you know. I don't know if Microsoft are going to be heavy-handed or really laid back. Are they going to give ABK a lot of autonomy? Are they not? Like, you know, it's so hard to tell because there's a world where they're very heavy-handed. They come in, they just change up all this stuff, and they like insert like very strong mandates and policies about how they want to run things, and they, you know, really strongly dictate how the franchises are handled. I mean, that could still actually be a good thing at the end of the day if they have a really strong, clear, successful vision for those kind of things. But it's just so hard to tell. I mean, I think my dream scenario would be that they restore a lot of autonomy, especially to Blizzard, but also make enough necessary changes and put competent, strong people in leadership positions that will be able to lead the franchises into successful direction in the business sense and also in the artistic sense. I mean, that's asking for a lot. I feel like I'm just asking for Jesus to come back, really. So I don't know.
Yeah.
it's just so hard to tell. It really comes down to how much impact and how much input does Microsoft want to have. I can definitely say that if the franchises don't do well, so the less well, especially on the business side, that the ABK franchises do, the more heavy-handed Microsoft are going to be in terms of controlling those franchises. And the better they do, probably the more level of autonomy that they'll allow ABK to have.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Also, Yiska, I appreciated that you gave TLO no caveats as to who he is and why people should possibly respect him. So if you do know who TLO is, please leave a comment and possibly at somebody in Discord, because I'd like to give you special internet brownie points.
Very true. Yeah, I just assumed everyone's a esports gamer. Yeah, makes sense.
We do operate in Overwatch.
We assume people who watch this or listen to this will like. I mean, you know who TLO is. If you don't know, just I don't know. Google
Eric knows who TLO is. I know Eric does. At least there's one of them.
Yeah.
There we go.
True random. He embraced the RNG. Okay, so that out of the way. That's going to be the Microsoft talk done. Definitely for some time. I don't think we're going to get an update on the Microsoft stuff for a long time. So I think we pretty much said all we need to say about the Microsoft stuff for now. There's not too much to say about it just because there's still so many unknown factors. I mean, we don't even know if it's going to fully go through yet.
Yeah,
Let's go through so much antitrust stuff. We're not going to talk about any Overwatch League 2022 roster updates because there hasn't been enough. I'd rather save that for next week when perhaps more stuff will be announced, and then we can do an episode that is more focused on that. I think this week was better to be more focused on like a big topic like this Microsoft acquisition than
For sure.
to sideline and get too jumbled up and scattergun on too many different things. But we are still going to end the episode on however many rounds of Get Off the Fence with Joe. So, Joe, start your game show. Play
Bing
the
bong.
music. Deal or no deal? Go.
Deal or no deal. Here we are. We've got deals. Maybe we've got dogs outside in our front yard. Maybe Yiska's going
hard.
Macro hard. Who knows, right? Yeah. We've got some questions from the old patron question askers. If you would like to ask us a question for the next episode or a future episode rather of Get Off the Fence, you can just become a patron at patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. Any level of patronage is not only welcomed, but allows you to ask a question. Just leave a DM in our Twitter mentions or join our Discord, confirm that patron status, and drop a line, and I will add you to my magical list of magical things. So we're gonna give this first one, we're going to go a little lighthearted. I know business talk has probably put some people to sleep. It's kind of like snoozeville, like, cool, that's a lot of money, bro. I don't give a fuck. So what do people really want to know? Yiska.
Yes.
From our favorite listener. We say that about everybody. However, maybe Yiska means it for you, Picasso. I don't know. But Picasso asked the question.
Definitely not.
Fair enough, Picasso. I don't know, man.
Okay. Wait, let me brace for Picasso level question.
Okay. If there was ever a question, Picasso, this is a very Picasso question. If you don't frequent the Discord, he has some. He's a creative mind, let's say.
Right.
He asks Yiska, what is the superior esports uniform? Jerseys, polos, or something else? Hard mode. You can't say bomber jackets.
My favorite question in esports. So number one, don't care. Number two, didn't ask. No. I think generally being creative is a cool thing because there's no real demands for esports jerseys.
Okay.
Like you could. Why not trench coats? There's no reason why it could be trench coats, right?
Doesn't feel very comfortable.
Yeah, that's a little weird, man. I don't think you're playing into too many positive stereotypes with trench coats and gamers.
Wait, why are trench coats not comfortable?
I'm just saying I don't know.
Is that why, like, They open them up
would you
in front of me in the park.
would you sit down and if we're playing video games in the park maybe, but would you feel comfortable sitting down in front of a computer for hours at a time in a trench
In
coat?
a trench coat. Yeah.
That doesn't.
I mean,
It
okay.
sounds bad.
Yeah, no, everything
Sounds like a bad
within
time.
comfort. Yeah. So a bathrobe could work, right?
Oh,
That's comfy. Like a pajama could work.
Sure.
But
Nice.
bottom line is, I think I enjoy when people are being creative with it because there's no real limitation other than probably like not have some weird shit on the arms that could inhibit the player's ability to play the game. Most functional esports wear is borderline scammy because there's no real physical requirements to gaming.
But the sweat, you don't want like breathable material for the gaming hours. And
I mean,
the
if
epic
you're sweating while
entertainment?
gaming, my friend, hit the gym. Like you have other problems if you're transpiring during gaming.
All right.
So yeah, generally speaking, I think functional wear, like as long as it's comfy, everything is good and fun. And then just like be creative about it. I think the idea that we have to model ourselves out of the sports jerseys is pretty garbage. Because there's a reason why sports jerseys are the way they are, because they need to be performant, right? But for esports, there's no such limitations. It's just like, oh, there's an E in front of our sport, so I guess we do
E-sport.
like there's no reason, right? Just be creative with it. Like that's why I kind of thought like the KDP stuff back in the day was kind of interesting, at least.
Little jumpsuits,
Yeah.
mechanic suits, yeah.
So maybe we would go into that.
Suits?
Yeah.
They did the sailor outfits.
Yep.
They did that too, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I don't know. Just like be creative with it, and as long as it makes some sense, I'm with you. Like I don't hate the recent 100 Thief stuff and G2 stuff and whatnot. Like as long as it looks good, it's all fine. But then again, I don't think clothes are a particular piece or like thing that you necessarily need to communicate your allegiance to a team to. I think there are better places, especially virtually, and that's where skins come in and whatnot. I think that makes way more sense to communicate allegiance to them in virtual spaces than in the outside world. Nobody's going to care. And on the off chance that someone does recognize the uniform, I don't know. Like I feel the majority of the utility comes from it being a good-looking piece of clothing. That's it.
So you would say you're probably not a fan of like the esports numbers, right? Like the numbers in the jerseys.
Complete stupid. Has no relevance. Yeah.
Okay. AVRL, any takes? Jerseys, polos, no bomber jackets.
Yiska, then how are you going to avoid a situation where like half your league's player base has the number one?
You don't have numbers.
Everyone wants to be number one.
Avoid it.
Everyone wants to be number one, right? So then you just get like this overwhelming number of players with the number one on their jersey.
Just not make numbers.
Imagine if you change teams. Imagine if you like maybe you go into a different team now, but that team already has someone with the number one. Like someone's got to change the number.
You know how
that's awkward.
we already have pretty cool signifiers of someone's character that goes beyond numerology, and we call that nickname. Why not have that on the back of a jersey with the full name? That's already like, why numbers, bro?
So
you're trying to be sports so bad, it's pathetic.
Because Pete Vlastelica decided that he really wanted this to be the NFL, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to force numbers on the jerseys no matter what. Anyway, Joe,
Hit me.
Thinking about this for a while. I actually think this conundrum was solved a very long time ago.
Okay.
If you go back thousands of years to the Olympics, I think the Greeks sorted it out, mate. All you need is a spear and a shield, and that's it. I don't think you need anything else. You play in a spear and a shield, and the rest of it's free hanging. You let nature take care of the rest. You know,
Fair play.
nothing gets in the way, and you're just boom. You just focus on the game, and you're competing. You're competing the way nature intended you to compete,
Nice.
with only a spear and a
love it.
shield.
Ancient
So, yeah.
Rome had spears and shields. Modern
No, I'm talking about
Gen Z
Greeks, yeah.
Zoomers. Greeks.
I think that I'm talking about the Greeks when they compete. You know, you weren't hiding anything. It was
True.
all out there. It was all out there for everybody. So, I mean, that's the most level playing field I can think of when you got nothing to hide.
Just au natural.
So
Feeling it.
at the end of it, though, I think the whole idea of like performance-based clothing for esports is a bit of a meme. So like, the best answer to me probably has to be that you just go for what looks cool. As long as it's comfortable. Pretty much what Yiska said. You go for what is fashionable, so that it looks good. Because hey, if you want to sell merch and sell jersey at the end of the day, you do have to have stuff that actually looks good, as opposed to stuff that's quote unquote super high function when you're not running, you're not doing a lot of physical exertion. Oh, are you gonna sweat while playing games? Crank up the AC. I don't know, man. Like you're playing most of these arenas. If you get to that level, these studios arenas are cold as fuck anyway. You know, like there's people mostly complain like, man, it was a lot of cold. It's actually really cold. I need like a second layer on me. Barely anyone says, man, that was too fucking hot. I guess it depends on the climate and where you are, but aircon exists. If you're in a studio environment, there's always going to be aircon. It's not an issue. So functionality in terms of like performance base makes no sense. It should just look cool. Like it should be something. My ideal way would be the esports jersey you wear is cool enough that you could wear it normally as just a regular attire, just a regular fashion you'd wear in the street, which is where I think 100 Thieves kind of nail it for the most part. Like they have a lot of stuff. They have some stuff that is like super quote unquote esportsy, which is like, come on, you guys can do better than that. But then they have a lot of stuff that is like just super normal streetwear that you could just wear, and that should just be their esports jerseys, in my opinion. So, yeah, that's where I stand.
Fair enough. From spears and shields to mice and keyboard, we're gonna venture back to Yiska with a question about the gladiators from Picasso again. Picasso asks Yiska, who would have been more successful in the GOATS metagame? Gladiators with Fissure or Shanghai with Fate? Get off the fence.
Who did Shanghai have in season 2?
Gamsu.
Oh yeah, easy. Shanghai. Shanghai. Yeah, pretty sure.
Okay.
I think Fate is just like a massive upgrade on Gamsu. He's like Gamsu 3.0 in many ways.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think Fissure was particularly outstanding in for that type of meta. I think there would have been some cohesion issues.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but it feels like the higher likelihood play would be Fate to Shanghai.
So you're just saying like the delta between the two of Gamsu compared to,
Yeah, I'm not sure if Fissure would even be an upgrade for Flats. And
AVRL?
they must have thought the same thing because they moved against it.
Right.
I'm not sure they were the type of team that would just like get rid of a player for internal issues to that degree. Right?
That makes sense. Yeah. AVRL, any something tells me probably imagine.
I'm gonna cheat here a little bit and
Okay.
say Gladiators if Fissure can actually play with the team. Because the problem
He's performing
here
well in
is
scrims.
he wants to fucking be in the scrim in the first place.
Of course.
Fissure probably would have always been good in scrim. The point is he doesn't want to play with the team. He doesn't want to be on a white person team. He only wants to play in a full Korean team. So, hey, his words, not mine.
Yeah,
anyway, So assuming that he's willing to play on the season 2 Gladiators team, then Fissure on Gladiators 100%. Because you're replacing Raw and Panka. Like, yo, you're talking about replacing Look, Gamsu's not even that bad, but Raw and Panka, bro, who are these guys? Raw, this guy is a total letdown. The rest of the Gladiators team is so much stronger in GOATS, I feel. You have Decay Zarya, like, damn, that's already powerful. Void Diva, come on, guys, let's get on the right page here. And then you put Fissure Ryan on top of that. And, okay, yeah, you got Big Goose and Shares. I'm sure they'll be fine. That's all right. I mean, is what it is. I think tanks mostly make or break GOATS anyway. Tanks and your Zarya player. And Shanghai have what? They have Envy and Gigery to play Diva. They have either Dia or DM playing the Zarya. I'm not feeling that. And then you have Fate on Ryan. Fate's not even good on Ryan this year. Like, that's not even one of his heroes. I don't even trust Fate on Ryan this year, let alone 2019. I think if you can make Fissure work on Gladiators and he actually wants to play on the team, then obviously it's Fissure on Gladiators. But if we're talking realistically and he doesn't want to play in Gladiators, well, I mean, he's already answered the question for all of us. So I guess, I mean, that's an auto. You just pick Shanghai by default because Fisher's like, no, I don't even want to play in this team.
Fair enough. Got a split room. Not a concise answer. This one's kind of fun. Yiska, we're coming to you for JR Smithsonian in Discord. He asked, or they ask, remember that one time Yiska said, quote, if you replace Izayaki with Shu, Alarm, or Twilight, you would find the same success on the Dragons, end quote. There are so many similar comparisons that one could make. If X player was given a good chance, they would thrive. Tier 2 as a whole other can of worms. Where does the good team equal good player logic end?
Okay. I gotta unclutter this statement a little. So, so he's okay. They're stating like there's a problem with the argument that someone could be exchanged. I'm not even sure what the question really is. Is it like?
I don't know what the question is either. Actually, I have no idea.
So I think, generally speaking, for instance, you probably couldn't replace Lip. In the role that Fate had, I think you probably couldn't replace Fate. Okay. You could maybe find people as skilled, or not as skilled as Void, but make it so they're still probably as successful, just because off-tank is pretty stacked. I think Lee Jae-gon is going to be harder. If I look to other teams, I think, for instance, comparing Dallas, like putting Fate where Fearless was, would just be such a monumental switch on that team and how they can play or would play that I don't even know how that would shake out. It would just reshape the entire flavor of the team. Same as if Sparkle was missing.
I think you're kind of getting at what I'm assuming, JR, hopefully you can correct us if we're, maybe misinterpreting this wrong, but maybe the question could be better served as what makes these players so irremovable? What about them as players separates them from the good team, therefore good player argument, where we just look at a good team and say, oh, well, the players on this team are just good. Everybody on the Shock is good. Everybody on the Dragons are just good. They're just the top. They're the best players. What about those players are just so irremovable that maybe Izayaki just doesn't bring to the table or is cloudy?
I guess for me, the difference is, has that person in a vacuum, meaning in a worse team where he hasn't any strongly supportive tasks, already demonstrated the ability to perform at a similar level? I think that's not true for Izayaki. Okay. Which is why I made the statement at the time. I think it would probably be true for. I mean, it was true. Was it true for Fate? I think so, with exceptions. I think Void, very likely to be the case. Lib, most definitely. Like, not that he has demonstrated that elsewhere, but I think Lib just can do things that others can't do. Like, nobody can play Sombra like Lib does. Right? Like, this is not a module of, like, him getting more heals or anything. Or, like his team being set up in a very specific way. He just is a freak of nature in certain aspects of the game, right? While others are very comparable. Ans was a player that was transcendental in his ability to do certain stuff, right? When he was on peak hitscan. Who else is transcendental? I think Fearless to a degree on Monkey. There's just certain aspects of a player that are so world-class and outstanding, even outside the elite row, that they are very hard to replace. Because they're like one of one in certain aspects of the game. Right. And these certain aspects have to be pretty important towards the outcome of the season, I suppose. So, I think there's a huge issue in Overwatch to having a hard time discerning between who is really like astronomically good or who is really bad, rather. So for instance, like on Washington Justice in season 2, was everyone garbage? Like, was every single player never going to be considered a good player? And like, if we put one of those players onto the Shanghai Dragons with perfect language ability and whatnot, would they clearly stand out like a sore thumb? Like that question isn't as trivial, I think. And there's also something to be said about human adaptability and being in the environment of like just like the best and what it does to your own drive and practice and where you think about the game and the internal facility and willingness to adapt to this is probably what we would consider to be the good player thing within someone. So in that, unfortunately, for 95% of all players, we will never be able to answer that question because they will never get into that position. So yeah, I think it is not a fair situation but in essence, you can just you can only evaluate what's actually on the server and what is special about them and what seems to be taught to themselves or internally had that is extraordinary beyond what their peers are capable of, which cannot simply just come from the system that they're operating in. And I don't think that is true for Izayaki. It is very true for Lip. Right.
Makes sense. AVRL, any thoughts there?
Well, I actually think Overwatch 2, in theory, should do a much better job of showcasing players' individual mechanics and their own abilities a lot better to discern, you know, who's better than who in a more measurable kind of way. Also, I don't really I didn't agree at the time, and I still don't now really agree with the Izayaki take from Yiska in general. I think the only irreplaceable player on Shanghai to that degree is Lip, because he transformed how Sombra is to be played and is the only person I've seen be able to execute Sombra in the way that he does. Literally not seen any other player that can match his degree of success on that character, and it was such an important hero in last year's especially playoffs run. I was going to say most of the season, but especially the playoffs run. So shit, I've kind of like lost control. What is even the original question again? I've already kind of
I think the core of it, the thesis is, where does the good team equal good player logic end? And I feel like from that we kind of synthesize like what makes somebody irreplaceable. Why do good players stand out?
Well, in Overwatch 1, I would define that as like someone that is the easy way to answer it is someone that can bring a level of gameplay to the table that transcends what everyone else is able to do at a mechanical level, whether that's lip on Sombra or leave on just about everything else. Or just any player that can do that. You know, lip on not lip, decay on Zarya in 2020 playoffs as well. It's just something like that where like you have one guy that just their own ability is so far elevated above everyone else's. It's ridiculous, right? Um, that's certainly one. I mean, there's more intangible ways of it as well. Like certain players could be super important to their teams to make them irreplaceable. In you know whether that's in game through leadership decision making, how they manage the teamwork in the team, or even outside of the game, and just what is their position out of the game? Do they have leadership qualities that keep everything in line? Because making sure your team's on the same page in and out of the game, and having that team morale and everyone being happy to work with each other and play with each other is a huge thing. Because we've seen players and teams kind of fall apart due to just quote unquote issues, right? And we've just talked about Fissure. Fissure, a great player, and they were even winning on Gladiators. I mean, he even beat London in that very classic match that we remember seeing. Fisher's, I think, debut official with Gladiators. So functionally, it looks like it's okay. But if the guy doesn't want to play on the team for X or Y reasons, like you can't really force him at the end of the day. And team issues end up tanking your success, even if you have good players. So I don't discount intangibles, even though they're hard to measure. Yeah, it's a complex question because it at the end of the day, it just comes down to like what value a player brings to the table that is measurable. I would have to say that makes them irreplaceable. That makes them, or at least very difficult to replace in terms of you can't get another player that can do this.
And that kind of essence of irreplaceability is the thing that, again, hopefully I'm answering, or I'm trying to translate JR's question here, is the thing that separates them from this good team umbrella that a lot of players kind of, maybe narratively speaking, kind of hide under, where it's just good team, thus must mean good player, right? It's not always that clear. These guys have pointed out, there are some values, whether it being strong, individual hero picks, or like AVRL said, being a leader maybe in your team, or a vocal member, or somebody who can really mend fences, let's say. They bring something intangible to the table that makes them irreplaceable and kind of escapes them from that black hole, let's say. Do we want to do one more before we skedaddle, or do we want to call it here?
We can do one more.
Right? One quick one.
Go on.
AVRL, I think you'll like this one as the resident PvE god. Picasso asks,
here we go.
If Overwatch 2 has PvP talents / perks like HOTS and Dota, would that lead to more strategic depth or complicate an already deep game? Get off the fence.
Those two things are not mutually exclusive, just so we're clear. You can both can be true at the same time. You can both complicate the game and also have more strategic depth. In fact, the more complicated a game is, usually the more strategic depth there is, even if it's, I mean, there are diminishing returns at some stage where it gets so complex that it's just like, it's tedious to play. In which case, like, yeah, like the strategic depth, the skill ceiling of the strategic depth is so high, but no one can be bothered playing because it's just too tedious. So was that, I can't remember, was that an either or question? Like what do I prefer, or what?
He just writes, if Overwatch 2 has PvP talent / perks, using examples like Here's the Storm or Dota.
Is it more strategic, or is it just more complicated?
Correct.
Is that? Yeah. Well, I don't know. Am I cheating if I say both? Like, I think it would be both, wouldn't it? Because
sure.
The less barrier for a viewer to watch the game, I think generally the better. Like, at the end of the day, the most viewable sports like football. When I say football, I'm talking about like soccer here for the Americans, but football where, yeah, you 11 players per side, kick ball into goal, done. Like you're not working with talents and but this guy, I mean, okay, the goalie can pick up the ball, but aside from that, everyone does the same thing. I mean, if you want to get more detailed about it, you people with different roles, but there's no this dude here there, but the striker is a different. He has a different ultimate, and the goalkeeper's ultimate is that. It's like, no, we don't deal with any of that. Like at the end of the day, the less complex aspects there are in a game, the more viewable it is for everybody, even the people familiar with the game.
Sure.
Like it's less of a chore to watch because there's less for you to keep up with and having to focus on. Like, yeah, I mean that is even a better viewing experience, even for people that are hardcore viewers. You can have strategic depth in ways that doesn't necessarily require your game to be super crunchy, if that makes sense. Like, let's talk about soccer again, football again. Like, there's lots of strategic depth in there, and when you want to really break down what people's positions are and what a midfield is supposed to do, and then how they work with their strikers and blah blah blah, and this guy in that position and where they're supposed to be, like you can get pretty in depth. So I don't necessarily think you need like mega crunchy stuff in your rule set or like the gameplay mechanics to create a lot of depth. I think that's just like again, there's diminishing returns that you get to a point where it just gets tedious instead of it being interesting. Like if Overwatch was a game that didn't have any MOBA elements and it didn't have any abilities, and okay, maybe people still do what they do in terms of like, yes, you still shoot the gun that you have and you have different classes and stuff like that, but we're not talking about like ultimates, we're not talking about like cooldowns and stuff anymore. That would still be a strategically deep game. You've removed a shitload of the complexity from the game, and it would still, in my mind, be a super strategically in-depth game. Why? Because what I've described is literally Team Fortress 2. And as someone that had extensive competitive experience in Team Fortress 2, I can tell you that a game like that doesn't have to work with any cooldowns, no ultimates outside of like the medic Uber, there was a shitload of strategic depth, and there's a lot more homogeny in what the characters did because there was only 9 classes, and only 4 of them actually even got played at a competitive level. So only 4 out of 9 classes ever even got played. So there's a lot of homogeny in just how everything interacts, and it's the exact same mirror on the other side. So you're playing only mirror matches with only 4 characters out of a 9 character roster. So you're doing a lot of the same stuff at the end of the day. And yet there's a shitload of strategic depth if you really dive into it because of how you're supposed to position, how you're supposed to move around the map, and how you're supposed to be controlling everything and, the different resources that exist in terms of health pack, ammo, high ground. Like all of these things still exist, So I'm not a big fan of adding like a shitload of crunchiness just to have it there.
All right. I guess just selfishly, would you like to see Overwatch 2 have like some sort of added like depth element? Like if they added perks, was that something that you personally would kind of enjoy?
Not for PvP.
Okay.
I don't think it would be good. I don't think it's like, who does that serve? Like who asked? Like not who asked, being like what player actually does want that?
Right.
I think people maybe like the idea. Someone listening will be like, "Oh, me, I did," but it's like I think you like the idea of it more than what the functional reality of that actually means. Because it's just more again tedium. It's more tedious thing that you have to think and worry about instead of just being able to play the game. I don't see that being a big win. I see that as just being like that to me drags the game down and makes it worse for pretty much everybody. Because even the people that want it, I don't think you really do want it. Maybe some people do legitimately want it. They just want a super crunchy game, and I want to be playing Civilization 7 in my Overwatch 2. It's like, well, I think you're just playing the wrong game now.
Makes sense. Yiska, any takes on perks and PvP?
I don't know. Like the topic of customization in like PvP games of things that you decide pre-game, like for instance the skill tree in League or let's say weapon loadouts in Warzone, whatever, the vast majority of people will interact with going to a website, copy pasting whatever is flavor of the month, and will never really interact with the individual aspects. If there was an organic way where, like we talked about it, for instance, in Tarkov, right? Like in Tarkov, you find a new attachment to the weapon, and then you try it out, and you have an experience what it's like to play with that, and there's exploration there. I don't think the vast majority of people interact with it that way. Selfishly, I would say, okay, that would be kind of dope because, I mean, that's a search engine optimization term. Like, I can write articles and put food on my table by writing, like, best Cassidy setup, you know? But other than that, like, there's... Yeah, it's not really anything that usually provides depth. And most of the time, they're not meaningful enough to really feel the difference. Also, sometimes I can't be arsed to like adjust my gear / skill tree to the different situations. And I think there's very few people who want to actively think about this in the first place and have like an internal monologue about the benefits. It's very weird. So. Even internally, right? So, for instance, okay, let me give you this example, right? I can watch a StarCraft Pro player replay, and I will look at the Zergs, and they're macroing perfectly. They're always hovering sub 200 minerals and whatnot, right? If I play that with my macro, I probably will have way more minerals at certain points in the game. So it would be opportune for me to make a macro hedge. Well, I'm not playing the macro hedge. Why? Because that would be like playing suboptimally and in terms of like away from perfect play. Now I'm thinking about this in terms of perks just the same. I could pick perks that make myself play better in that moment because I lack a certain skill set. I'd much rather just like hone the skill set that pro players have on me and then use whatever skill tree they choose in order to get the edge. I'd rather like improve myself and play maximally optimal than adjusting to my own shortcomings and like sort of confessing to myself that I suck.
Just to kind of add to both your points, you know, there's you know, in a circle of friends outside of esports that you know, occasionally plays League of Legends, you know, pretty casually, and some ARAMs and stuff. The amount of times people not only, you know, come back to the game or are actively still playing the game and do not interact with any of the runes and masteries whatsoever and just use Blitz to auto complete it for them.
Yep.
Is 100%. I don't know a single person in just that small circle that doesn't utilize that tool to completely remove that aspect. Yeah, it is not for everybody. And Yiska, I take offense to you not winning all the games you possibly can. You absolute tryhard.
I will say, okay, here's a weird thing though.
Okay.
Me installing Blitz and having the what feels like optimal build, even though it isn't for me in my skill set. But feels kind of nice, even though it's fire and forget. Like, having that idea of, like, having a little competitive advantage over scrubs who don't install that shit kind of feels nice, I think.
Gives you a little confidence.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully this confidence, you know, pep talk inspires you to possibly ask your own question. If you'd like to, you can head on over to patreon.com/tacticalcrouch. Any patron tier can ask a question. Just let us know. Shoot a question over Discord. You can add us on Twitter, whatever works. And we'll add you to the list. Shout out on the show. Obviously, we're still working through the list. So if your question has not been answered, don't worry. We will get to it in a future episode. So back to you, Avril.
All right. Weather's looking good out there. And that's your 6 o'clock news. Done and dusted for the week. As next week, we will come back to some... I guess we talk about roster moves next week when hopefully more roster moves actually come on through. Yeah, I know the whole links a rumor and stuff like that, and you know, there's the old Fissure thing and Dante potentially confirming Jake's position as well. We'll talk about all that and more next week when this time really for an entire week there probably won't be any major news unless
should I bring up the tweet?
Unless some Overwatch 2 comes up, but you know, Yiska doesn't like talking about Overwatch 2 anyway, so it's not like we're going to cover it.
The foreshadowing.
Well, no, who knows? When I say this, sometimes things actually turn up. But
AVRL,
yeah,
actually summoning.
Great talk about Microsoft. We nailed we hashed out as much Microsoft talk as we could handle. And I think we basically covered it all. Like, there's nothing really more to talk about as far as Microsoft goes. We've all dropped our takes in there. And overall, it's a big wait and see game. It's a long wait and see game because we're waiting over a year really to see the long-term effects. But hope it all turns out well. Thank you again for tuning in this week. 210 and done and dusted. We'll see you next week for 211. Peace out.